Darth Sidious, or Sheev Palpatine, can be found pulling the strings on pretty much everywhere in Star Wars, to a degree. But I want to focus specifically on his desire to cheat death, and explain its constant presence throughout all trilogies. I talk a little bit about it in my previous video about the Skywalker Saga, but I'll focus now more on Palpatine. Without further ado, let's dig in. The Sith have a constant obsession with becoming stronger within the Force, making the dark side even stronger within them, and to even cheat death. We learn through the comics and other medias that dark side users, if strong enough, are able to fuse themselves with their consciousness or spirit with objects. But this has its limitations, so obviously this wasn't good enough for Darth Sidious. I'll be mentioning all three trilogies with the knowledge that we learn from mainly episodes 3, 6, and 9. Palpatine talks of cheating death in episode 3, and we now know that in 6 he had multiple plans, but one was to live through Luke, which Vader stopped him. And then he more clearly explains the more realized ritual in episode 9. One thing I thought a lot about before the last trilogy existed was that Palpatine talks of a way to cheat death in the prequels, and then it turns into nothing. And we end up just thinking it was just the way to seduce Anakin, and it was a lie and was never meant to be. Palpatine tells things from a certain point of view a lot, and we more accurately learn that from episode 9. Assuming everybody remembers that in episode 3, Palpatine tries to talk to Anakin about a way of helping save his wife, Padme, through the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. From what we learn in the sequel trilogy, mainly episode 9, Padme would have never been strong enough in the Force to actually have someone kill her and then she possess their body. If Anakin knew that was the deal, he wouldn't have done it. Palpatine reveals that he did not 100% know it when Anakin becomes Vader in his office, but when he learned it, he knew about possessing other bodies. It gives a whole new scare factor that when Luke went to kill Palps in episode 6, that he could have possessed him, but Vader saved him, which was mentioned in episode 9 as well by Palpatine to Rey. And then eventually Vader, now Anakin, you could say, kills him. Though he wouldn't have been possessed, since Palps not only couldn't have overpowered the literal vessel of the Chosen One, but Vader's body was wrecked from a poorly kept suit, thanks to Palpatine, funny enough. Having a backup plan, or multiple plans, is always something that Palpatine has. He hid in the shadows and made plans for his comeback, and he seems to do that quite a lot. Prepping in the shadows. He is the Phantom Menace after all. He plays with Ben in the years between episodes 6 and 7, and then eventually becomes Kylo Ren. He was prepping his next apprentice to bring back the Sith, as he says in episode 9 about the ritual, but for the Sith to come back. The Sith never came back as they were before, as it was technically his clone with his spirit essence inside of him, not his actual original body. So he says in The Rise of Skywalker to Rey that she will pledge herself as a Sith, and with a stroke of her saber, the Sith are reborn. As we know back in episode 2, he had access to cloning. After disbanding the Camino facilities, his Sith loyalists eventually did his cloning, but for himself. Interesting foreshadowing there. But the Sith loyalists on Exegol never completely made a perfect host for him, which one ended up being a perfect body, but without being Force sensitive. Side note, since the clones didn't have enough of an M count, with M meaning midichlorians, a little about them. They are the living cells that teach you the will of the Force. The more you have, the more you can use the Force. Everybody has these or has the Force within them, but not everyone can wield or use the Force. The more you have, the more you can use the Force, and you can use it or bend it to your will. As a great disappointment, the clone, or in Star Wars terms, because it is a different universe from ours, one of his clone sons runs for his life and makes a life for himself, which eventually led to having a wife and a child, and then hiding that child from Palpatine's reach. As we know, that child is none other than Rey. So when a clone couldn't be realized perfectly, the Sith loyalists made a monster, a creation in their labs of a new being named Snoke. He was created to have the ability to use the Force and then controlled by Palpatine. So when Snoke heard from Kylo Ren that he discovered a Force-sensitive no-one girl from Jakku, since his son had history there, his rage began. You can actually see Snoke be pretty upset in that scene, but also his new plot. That was why Ben didn't try to eventually kill Rey in Episode 7. He was told to bring Rey to Snoke, aka Palpatine. This eventually happened in Episode 8, and then the test was more being tested, and he learned that there was much anger in both Rey and Ben, leading to Palps manipulating both to see who would be his rightful apprentice, but then turn them into his next host, or body, to possess, with his actual spirit, and come back in a stronger body. So it was neat to see the pure act, or revelation, that Palpatine is trying to cheat death always, and knows how, connecting the third film in all three trilogies in that way. He even tells Rey about the way of saving the ones you love, like he did to Anakin. Though if Palps is saying it, it is never as it seems. But it's still a cool connection between Anakin and Rey. But essence transfer never happens because of the prophecy, legacy, and determination of the Skywalker family. Their love and influence reached to Palpatine's own grandchild, to then become an obstacle. However, when an ancient Sith prophecy about the dyad was discovered as being actually Ben and Rey, yes, it was an ancient prophecy by the Sith many years before, of two beings representing balance of the light side and the dark side to help restore or strengthen someone in the Force. Now, Sidious could become his powerful self, and most likely find a new apprentice some other way, and have the Sith come back and rule as they did in the years prior. Too bad for him, though, as we see at the end of Episode 9. So I'll kind of mention it again a little bit, but it's one of the things I love most about all Star Wars trilogies, and I really appreciate in the sequel trilogy how Palpatine's plan to cheat death is really connected in all three trilogies, and we learn more about past encounters through Episode 9, because at the end of Episode 6, when we see Luke trying to kill Palpatine and then saved by Vader, Palpatine actually seems to have a lot of plans there. Either Luke would kill Vader, and then Luke would be his new apprentice, or if Vader killed Luke, then nothing would really change much. But if Luke actually did end up killing Palpatine, then he could possess his body and then have a new younger body that's strong with the Force. Or if Vader killed him, and just nothing really seemed to work out, then he had backup clones on Exegol that he could go to and then prep again for another war. He seems to just be the mastermind at preparing and planning things always and always and always, until he gets thrown off by the dyad, and now it seems like he has no plan, unless, of course, things change after this video is made, but this is what it is currently. But I absolutely love that the way to cheat death is talked about in each trilogy, that they're all connected, and it really creates more of a bigger presence of Sidious and what he's focusing on, and how he uses it to tempt future generations. I just love that there's an answer to it that's answered by the end of the Skywalker Saga. By the making of this video, I guess you can see the date, you'll realize that this is released before we actually have confirmation about what really is being shown at the end of Mandalorian Season 2 with those tanks that we see. If the M count from Grogu has any connections with Palpatine or Snoke, or if there's more information that's revealed by the Darth Vader comics that is being released currently. We actually have learned that between episodes 5 and 6, that Vader discovers Exegol, and that Palpatine is already starting to make a bigger fleet and already has a plan in store, as we know he's always doing. So it'll be interesting to see how they expand more upon and his story about how he came back through the sequel trilogy. Because more details are always nice and fun for us Star Wars fans. Thank you for hearing me explain more about the connections about Palpatine cheating death in all the trilogies. And if you enjoyed this, you know what to do. and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you, always.